Okay, I started the recording. Let me share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Ramakant, it is visible.
Okay, great. So before we begin today's session, I just want to tell that in the document I created this table of content section, and I'm creating this index. Of course, the page numbers would be incorrect because the page numbers are specific to this specific tab. So once we are done with all the sessions, Trilokya, asked me to create a PDF so that we'll have a hard copy with each of us, one at studio and one with whoever is trying to shoot. So once we are done with all the sessions, we can edit these page numbers so that this will serve as a proper index for our entire knowledge base. So I just wanted to tell you this. So if you click on
One
this,
question here, Ramakant,
uh,
when coming to the index part, if we click on that respective topic, does that allow us to go directly to that respective topic, or just, I
Ye-
mean,
yes, Anna, that's true. I'll show you an example. So
okay,
let's take this FPS. Let's click on FPS. It will show this hyperlink. The moment you click on it, it will take you to that specific tab.
directly to that topic?
So,
Okay.
so what happens is actually Google Docs, Docs does not allow us to, create a global index like this. So I created, the tab specific index, which has these links populated. So how the links get created is that if you select the style as a heading, right? Then see here I chose this as heading one, and then I chose this as heading two. So as per the heading hierarchy, this gets populated, this index classification, right? So that gets populated. So if you refresh it, then it will refresh whatever changes you have done. So this gets populated automatically. And how we got these dots and all, I added a filter here. So it does that. So I copied this index from here and I pasted it here. Why this is working is because end of the day, it is just a linked text, right? For that reason, it works.
Okay, okay. Got it, Ramakant. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to tell you that. Now today you can get started with our session today. So this table of contents is not perfected yet. Uh, I need to change the headings and all. So I'll do that after the session. So I'll tell you what all topics we would be covering today. Today's session is really important. So we would be covering mostly about the focus. So what are the different creative techniques of focus, and how many different modes of focus are there for us, and in which situation, which specific mode is recommended. And we'll also see different types of video shooting modes. So this is specific to FX30. So in our camera, what all different types of video modes are there, all of them are covered. And of course, all these modes, most of the modes are present in other cameras also. So this would be general knowledge. Along with that, we would also be covering a very special mode called as movie mode, which is supported by Cineline cameras like FX30. And we would also be discussing in which scenarios, which mode to use and which would be an ideal mode for us to record the videos. And at the end, we would be covering about lenses. I told you briefly about lenses in few points here and there in the previous sessions. So today, I jotted all the points down so we can discuss very clearly about what lenses are, and all the other details corresponding to lenses would be discussed today. So that's overview of what we would be covering in this session. So yeah, let's get started with the session. The very first topic that we would be covering is focus. So I'm sure all of us know what is focus. So if you are able to focus is nothing but the ability to uh, to dedicatedly see something, right? Now let's take example. Let's look at this image. So we can tell that this woman, who is our subject, is in focus, and the entire background is out of focus. So this is how we understand focus as. Focus is nothing but your ability to look at a subject. So that is meant by focus. Now there are different creative techniques to manage the focus. So these are not types of focus that are supported by cameras. but these are the techniques used by people who shoot. This is the technique used by videographers and cinematographers, to make their intention clear. Okay, we'll discuss, what that is. So the very first mode which we would be seeing is shallow focus technique. So a shallow focus technique offers a narrow depth of field. Now, I'm sure you remember what a depth of field is from our previous sessions. Anyway, I'll just give one liner of what a depth of field is. Depth of field is the distance between the the object which is the closest to the camera, and an object which is at the farthest of the camera, right? So distance between nearest and farthest objects in a frame to the camera is called as depth of field. Now there are two types of depth of field, of course. One is a narrow depth of field, the other is a shallow depth of field. Now, why are we discussing about narrow and shallow here? So if you remember, go back, we talked about aperture, wherein we discussed about depth of field. So an f1.4 gives us a very shallow depth of field. An f16 gives us very deep depth of field. Now we'll see an example of that. F1.4, as you see, has the bokeh effect. So what's a bokeh effect? It basically blurs out anything other than your primary subject. So this looks very cinematic. So an f1.4, which is something which has more aperture or less f-stop number, this gives you this depth of field, a shallow depth of field. Okay. And an F16 or an F8 gives a deep depth of field. That is, everything will be in focus, but not just your subject, right? So, so that's a brief revision of depth of field. Now, the first technique is shallow focus. So, shallow focus has a narrow depth of field. So, shallow focus is wherein you focus only your subject and you just blur out everything else. Okay, so this can be achieved by using high aperture value in your lens. I'm sure when we watch movies, we'll see a lot of scenes wherein if someone is talking, only that guy will be in focus and everything else is out of focus. So that is a shallow focus technique. Okay, and the second technique, or the next technique, is the deep focus technique, and it's contrary to shallow focus technique. A deep focus technique has a shallow depth of field. Now, what's the shallow depth of field is that it has more aperture. So it has less aperture. That is, everything will be in focus, not just one specific speaker. Now, take example of this classroom, right? So this image is from a movie called A Serious Man. So in that, if you look at this shot, everything is in focus, all the students. So all of them are equally important to you. Okay? So in such cases, we use a deep focus technique. Okay? And then we have a very most widely used technique by most of these cinematographers, which is rack focus technique or focus pull technique. So I don't even have to explain, you'll understand just by looking at these both images. So if you look at the first image, this old uncle is in focus and this fat guy is out of focus. Now in the second image, our uncle is out of focus and this guy is in focus. Now, one commonality that you might have already observed in these both frames, in these both images, is that the frame is exactly the same. So let's say that the one with white hat is speaking. So when he is speaking, or when you're trying to give introduction of him, you try to focus him. Okay. Now, when you move on to this person, that is, if this person is speaking or you are narrating about this person, you put this person in focus. So rack focus is nothing but switching the focus between two two important subjects in a single frame consecutively is called as a rack focus.
Then what is the difference between this rack focus and the first one, which you told? Yeah, shallow focus, narrow
Shallow
focus.
focus.
Yeah,
Narrow
it is also
focus.
same, right? Yeah.
No, 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 no. Narrow focus focuses specifically on one single subject, but rack focus, it continuously changes the focus between two subjects. Narrow focus has a single subject.
I mean, if
Rack
there are in the
focus,
first picture, Ramakant, if let's assume in the first the one which you are currently displaying, let's say there are two people along with the woman, and there is one person behind her. So then if we give that shallow focus, like how it get, I mean,
So let's say
display.
that there, yeah. So let's take example of this deep focus image. So here you
Okay.
have this white shirt guy, you have this blue shirt woman.
Okay.
So let's say that let's say we are considering only this white shirt guy, okay, and you
Okay.
just blurred out everything else. Now this is called as a shallow focus. Now you blur. Now if you are trying to switch focus between two subjects, that's rack focus. Now coming to your question, right? So if you consider one single instance of rack focus, that becomes shallow focus. So rack focus can be considered as simultaneously switching shallow focus between two different subjects. So one instance,
That we cannot switch in the, I mean, shallow focus. I mean, it we
uh,
cannot switch it.
it's no, it's not like that. Actually, it's not a type or it's not a mode. It's just a technique to express what
Okay.
you want to tell. So uh, I'll just write it down. One instance
Okay.
is one shallow focus. One instance is one shallow focus. One instance of focusing on one subject. One instance of focusing on one subject is, is shallow focus. So I understood your question, but it's not a hard and fast option that you select that I want to select shallow focus, I want to select deep focus. It's not like that. So in this case, right now, I showed you, go back so that you can compare these both. So these both, right? You can call the very, if you do not have the second image, let's say you only have the first image, you can very well call the first image as shallow focus. There's no doubt in that. You can independently call the second image also as shallow focus. But in a video, when you're switching the focus between one subject and other subject, and then back to the subject and again to the other subject, and maybe you bring in a third subject. So when you're trying to switch the focus, this technique is called as a rack focus or focus pull. But if you consider one single instance, let's say the very first image, then yes, you can call that as a shallow focus. Uh,
Okay.
is,
So then,
is it
Ramakant, like, I mean, if there are three people in the current image which you are, I mean, showing currently, let's say three
uh,
people are there. Can we
okay?
focus on two people and blur one person? I mean,
Yes, we can do that. That's an advanced focus technique. We have something called as zone focus, okay, and we also have something called as a large spot focus. So I plan to cover them in our next sessions actually, but let me show you anyway. So
okay.
you are
Like it was
asking very
two
you are asking very advanced questions. So that
no,
comes
no.
in metering mode. So what happens is that, so I'll answer your question. So we have something called a spot. So what a spot is, so there are different levels of spot. You have small spot, medium spot, large spot. So I'll tell you what this spot is, what I'm talking about. So it gives you a zone. Okay, you also have something called a zone, right? Focus area. So if you keep your focus area as wide, it will shoot the entire frame. If you keep your focus area as center, it will focus on only whatever is in center. And then you have flexible spot. So small, medium, and large. So when you choose small flexible spot, it gives you a very small box which you can move here and there, and you can select your subject. Okay. And regarding your question, can we put two people when you have multiple subjects, you want to do selective focusing on only specific subjects. So that is a creative concept wherein you have to choose any of these modes and you can alter them as per your need. Now, regarding your question, there are three subjects in the frame, and you want to keep only two subjects in focus, right? So there's only one way of achieving that, and that is if those both subjects that whom you want to keep in focus are nearby. That is, there is no third subject which is interrupting these both subjects that you want to try to focus simultaneously. So what you can do is that when three subjects are there in the frame and you want to focus on two subjects, you create a zone and you choose the zone as the area that is covered by these two subjects. In that time, your lens will focus on that specific zone, thereby focusing only on these two selective subjects and putting the third subject, which is out of the zone, as blurred, or it focuses out. So is that clear, Anna?
Oh, okay, so this feature is available in the camera which we are using in processor home,
Yes, that's
Ramak.
correct. Yes, Anna,
Okay,
we have it. So we are using FX at it. It's a single camera. It has every single option that we can possibly have.
okay, got
Uh,
it. Thank you,
Zoom.
Ramak. Yeah.
Uh, it's not Zoom, right? I
Yeah,
forgot
why
it's
I'm asking
Zoom.
this question, Ramakant, because there might be some situations, maybe like Trailoke Garu can sit, beside Swami, and there might be some situations both can be focused. If there are
Hmm.
any other person sitting, other people,
Huh.
they know they're not. There is no necessity for them like to be in the focus. Only Trailoke Garu and Swami need to be in focus. So that's why I'm asking. There might be chances. So that's why I'm asking if there is a feature in our camera as well.
Hmm. It's possible, Anna. I'm just thinking if Trilokya and Swami should be in focus, then if you put the camera in the center, that is straight to Swami, then Trilokya should ideally sit beside Swami so that you can group both of them in one zone. But that will never happen, right? So Trilokya will always sit opposite to Swami. And of course, your camera should always face Swami. In that case, the maximum you can capture is only Trilokya's head because she would be seeing Swami and Swami should always see her. So if you just want to put Trilokya's head and Swami in focus, then you can create a vertical zone and you can keep both of them in focus. But if there are or another idea would be you can maybe Swami and Trilokya will sit facing each other and you can put your camera at the right hand side, right? It would be cutting 90 degrees in the middle of both. In that time, you can put these both in focus. Actually, many people are not coming in the frame. We can go ahead and choose a wide zone. So wide zone is nothing but it will put everything in focus.
Mhm.
This zone,
Okay.
it's actually tricky, Anna, because I
Mhm.
can't think of situation where you can put Triloki and Swami both in one zone. At the same time, you're focusing on Swami mostly. If you can tell me scenario, right, I can, advise on that.
Maybe, a scenario in the sense, Ramakant, let's say, for the first couple of sessions, okay. And that is my just assumption. Maybe Trailoki Garu needs to confirm on that. But however, my question was, like, let's say, for the first two sessions, okay, Swami has given a few, topics, a few speeches on the few topics. And after that, once Swami sees those videos, let's say Swami tell maybe like so that question needs to be asked by maybe like Trilokya by sitting there and she
Same very close to me.
hello.
No, I can hear you now.
Okay, so there might be
Actually,
chances, right?
sometimes
Yeah.
it may happen that there was a situation, Ramakant,
Uh-huh.
wherein Pani sir also was telling that, and Nikhil sir also advised that let us have some a two-person podcast kind of session where two people, Swami and the speaker, will be sitting opposite to each other but facing the camera, just like podcasts happen on YouTube channels,
Hmm.
right? So in
Right.
that way, camera will be faced a little away. Both will be around 45 degrees to each other, or 90 degrees to each other, but 45 degrees to the camera.
I understood your point.
Yeah.
So see, in usually in podcasts, if you see, most of the cases you will see that they are always switching the speakers, right? So when
Mm.
one person is speaking, they are able to focus on that person alone. That is that subject will be in focus and the background will be blurred. It looks cinematic. And if this fellow
Yes.
speaks, immediately they are able to capture this also. So usually what happens is that they have three cameras. They use three cinematic cameras, one dedicated for each speaker and one which gives you a wide frame. So in our
Okay.
use case,
Okay.
since we have one camera, the best that we can do is we can use a wide focus zone. So if not, if I use a zone focus, that also works. But usually the zone focus is more like, see, in our studio, if two people are sitting, at 45 degrees to each other, or even if they sit at 90 degrees, the problem is you'll only get the side view, right? You won't get the complete view. So usually, if there is a restriction on cameras, if you have less cameras, the 45 degrees angle, what you were telling, right? That's good, so that you both can come into the frame. In that time, but the problem here is that both of you sitting at 45 degrees, this itself will occupy the entire frame almost. So if you do selective focus, right, the zone focus, let's say you are anyway selecting almost the entire frame to make sure that you both are in focus. And if let's say that if Swami's hand moves out of the zone, it blurs out Swami's hand itself, which is dangerous. So if you have a single camera, the only option that we have is to go ahead and use a wide focus area wherein both of you along with your backgrounds will be in focus. Or other option would be no, there's no other option. This is only option. If you have multiple cameras, maybe we can do some creative planning. But to my understanding, this is only option. If you have two people, then this is only way. But I can think of one instance now that Abhiramanna was telling, right? If you remember, like last year's Krishnastami, which happened in Prasad, Sharma Sir's home. Trilokya, you were sitting beside Swami only. You are sitting exactly
Yes,
beside
yes,
Swami.
yes,
So
yes.
that is a perfect scenario wherein we can simply zoom out and we can choose a zone and we can put only you both in focus. But my point is, in that scenarios, anyway, you both only will be in frame. The only other possibility is that you are in left side and on right side some other devotees are there, non-climax or non-trilokya devotees. At that time, maybe we can create a zone and focus only on you and Swami. But if that's not the case, then in these cases also we can use a wide frame.
So we need to
So,
figure that out. Yeah, right?
hmm, I mean, uh,
Because generally on YouTube channels, nobody will sit beside each other, right?
no,
The
nobody will say
subjects.
correct.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think we can make some trial and errors and come to some optimizing position. Or we
Yeah,
can
we can.
shoot Swami first with all the answers, and then the speaker we can shoot later on.
Hmm.
And then in the
But
editing, we can add one after the other.
hmm. Okay, so when you said figuring out, right? You want to figure out which position you and Swami would sit.
Yeah, yeah, where both will fit. That is one thing. Or second thing is just Swami will capture at one go. Once Swami leaves, we have all the time to capture the question separately.
That is true. That's the best thing that we can do. And
Mm.
there is a big advantage of what you said. The advantage is that you can shoot at f4. It will give you the best depth of field for our lens, and you can happily focus on Swami. And then once Swami leaves, you can ask questions, and we'll capture you. We'll get best focus for you also. And when you do post, right, in post it look as if we have multiple camera settings and we took the proper cinematic, footage. It's going to look like that. So if we have time, then we can definitely do that.
Definitely, definitely. We
That's a good
can
idea.
that is the best thing to be done.
That's the best thing. Yeah. You'll get best of both.
Best of both, right? Without
Yeah.
using second camera.
Yeah. And one more advantage is that we need not struggle for space and constraints on frame, that's being recorded. Because only
Mm.
Swami will be in frame. He'll be comfortable. He need not turn his head also. We can focus
Yes,
dedicatedly. And then when you come, we can shoot you also dedicatedly.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you,
Okay.
Ramakant. Please
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah. Any more questions till here?
It's clear, Ramakant.
Okay. And then we'll come to next technique, which is soft focus. So if you look at this image, right, so we can vaguely tell that this is somewhat similar to shallow focus, right? Because the subject is in focus and your background is out of focus. But if you look at this, even more clearly, you'll see that it has this vintage look, right? Things are fading away here and there. Zoom it in a bit more. See, it looks like some dream, right? So things are fading. Yes, subject is in focus, background is out of focus, but you're seeing the spread, right? The spread of subject. This looks
True,
Yes,
true.
dreamy.
yes.
So
It
this
looks like some, yeah, dream. Yeah,
dream.
yeah.
So right. So that dream effect is called soft focus. I'll tell you how we achieve soft focus and how we achieve each of these focuses at the end. But this is a type of focus technique. Then we have split diopter. This is a very advanced technique. So I try to keep it simple. We will never use the split diopter. So I'm not sure if you're able to notice or not. But see, if you look at this image, you have this person who is lying here, and you have this person's head who is looking at this, the person who is lying on the ground. In the middle, you have a slight blur, right? If you notice, you're seeing a blur here in the middle, from here till here. There is a blur, right? Did you guys notice that?
Yeah, right, right. Only two objects, subject one and subject two, are focused, and rest of it is blurred.
Not rest of it actually. I
Only
thought
it is
that
some
this would
part
happen.
of it, right? In some part.
Exactly. It's just a part. So from here, right? Look at my cursor. From this point till this fellow's head, and from this
Yes.
point, top to bottom, just from here to here, just this small zone. This zone only is out of focus, right? Now, did you notice that? If you didn't notice, it will become very hard to explain this concept.
No, I can see, Ramakant.
You
I
can
mean,
see,
from my
right?
side, I
Okay.
can see the
Yeah.
zone which
Yeah.
you are
This.
highlighting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
little bit
This
blurred.
one. So, Trilokya, can you
Got it,
notice?
Ramprasad.
Got it, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So this is a split diopter. Now I'll tell you what this is very clearly. But before that, I'll explain a few more things. I'll tell you why this is not any of the above modes, and then I'll tell you why this is a diopter and what is a diopter. So as the name suggests, it is split and then some new word called diopter. A split diopter, this has a clear line down the middle of frame between foreground and background. So let us consider this. Let's consider this only. This guy, these two people. Now here, this person with white cap is our subject, and everything else is background, including this the second subject. Now, if you look at this second image, this person, this young person, is our subject, and the other subject is now out of focus, and he's as good as a background. There's nothing more than that. Now, let's say that you want to focus on both this person and this person. That is, you want to keep both your subject and foreground in focus. At that time, you use a split diopter. Now, I know you'll get a very good question, which is if you want to focus on both foreground and your subject, foreground or subject or background, whatever. If you want to keep everything in focus, then you can simply choose deep focus technique wherein everything will be in focus. That is true. I am not denying that, but the ways I'll show you what a diopter is. So, I mean, I told you why it is not the other shooting mode, but I didn't clarify yet on if you want to put background and foreground in focus, why are you not using a deep focus? I'll answer that question. Split diopter lens. So there is a specific lens or filter called a split diopter. Let's take a look at this. So is a this looks like an ND filter. It's not at all an ND filter. It has nothing to do with it. But it's an attachment just like an ND filter or any UV filter. So this is how it looks when you attach it to a camera. So if you see there is the so you have your complete lens, okay, but there is a rectangular area which is stripped out of your lens. Okay. Now I'll tell you what kind of effect can be. So this is called as a split diopter. Okay, and I'll show you what you can do with it. Let's look at this image. So if you look at this image, if you notice carefully, the first one is shot using a split diopter filter. The second one is shot without a split diopter. I'm not sure if you're able to see the image. Try to open it. See, if you look at this, so you're putting only this woman in focus, and you are putting everything else out of focus. Now the question is, and now see, this is with filter, this is without filter. Now you can ask me a question. If that is the case, then why can't you focus only on this lady so that this lady is in focus and everything else goes out of focus? Now let's look at this no filter. This no filter has a fairly good amount of depth of field. So it's not completely blurring out everything in the background, but it's doing a quite good job. So this can be considered as a good autofocus technique on this specific lady. Now, if you have good autofocus, why should you use a split diopter? It's because you want to make this very creative, frame wherein the background is, of course, it's clearly out of focus, and you want to make it extremely out of focus. Now, look at the crops that you see in no filter. If you look at the crops, they are blurred out, but not completely. In with filter, with this diopter filter, it looks almost animated. It is extremely zoned out, right? And even this lady, right? It looks like half of her is in focus, and half of her also is cut out by the filter. That is, your subject is partially in focus. And if you look at your background here below her head, right, below her hair at the end, this is a small part of her background. This is in focus, and everything else is out of focus. So this is a very creative idea that cinematographers came forward with, wherein they do not want to stick with the standard rules. They want to show their creativity, and they will completely zone out few parts of the background, and they'll keep few parts of the background in focus, and they will actually fade out even the subject. Few parts of the subject will be in focus and few will be out of focus. Now this is also somewhat like, let's say that a hero saw a heroine, okay, and this fellow is fascinating something. Now in that case, it cannot look quite natural, right? Of course, you can use a soft focus wherein you can make this woman, dreamy, somewhat like this. You can do that, but it gives you, it doesn't give you quite the feel that you get like this. This looks, very different from a soft focus. Soft focus is when you want to do some flashback scenes, okay? But this diopter scenes are to show someone, in an extremely creative way, wherein one person may think of the other person, or if you are, giving a, a different type of interaction to this specific person, etc. There are very creative use cases of diopter. So this is one use case. So how is that they are achieving this, right? To begin with. So this lens which is cut in half, the one that you saw there, right? So this which is cut. So in this cut portion, they will try to put the subject so that half of the subject or some X percentage of the subject would be out of focus, would be in focus, and everything else would be out of focus. Okay, so that is a diopter. Now coming back to the question, I answered the question, which is it's a different kind of creative idea. It's a one-liner answer for it. Now again, if you look at this frame, now what is that this person is trying to even put out of focus? He put both the subjects in focus. He did not cut any subject. He cut some stupid part of the background which doesn't make any sense. It looks like a mistake in video shooting, right? That's actually not the case. So this kind of effect is given. So this gives a distinction between two subjects, the first point. And the second point is that, it tells that, okay, these both are different subjects and there is a foreground which is separating these both. That's one concept. The other way of telling is that when there are extremely, intense scenes, or when there is a lot of tension that's going on in the scene, at that time they use this diopter technique. Okay? We will never ever use this technique. I also struggled a lot to understand this. It took a lot of time, but I wanted to keep this in our discussion, so I brought this. So if you have any doubts regarding this split diopter, go ahead and ask me.
Actually, Ramakant, in Premiere Pro, while doing post production, we can apply a mask and put this blur effect on the rest of the areas. So, this masking helps to do that, and on top of it, we need not disturb the original footage. This
Okay.
might be
One question. So when you say you will blur the background, right? So let's take this image.
parts
So
of the background.
What part, specific parts of the background you are telling?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, yes. Yeah, I think you are correct because we see that, even in few videos or in some movies, they just blur out some parts of the video, right? So to clear out
Yes,
a
yes.
few commercial advertisements and all, they do that. Yes, we can do that, but see, in a split diopter, what happens is that the diopter filter has two convex lenses. I mean, they have two different, sometimes they come with two different refractive indices. So what happens is that one subject will look like it has one type of depth of field and the other subject will look like it has a different type of depth of field. Okay. So it gives you that a creative effect when you use a diopter. But you will not get that using any of the post techniques, right? Was the lenses that I showed you, right? So advanced diopters. So here you're seeing a segregation between the two pieces of the lens, and one specific piece of lens will have one specific property, and the second part of the diopter will have different property. So in the same field, it gives you two different looks of two different subjects simultaneously. So that's also one of the big advantage of using a diopter filter.
Got
So
it, Ramak.
yeah, So see, as you told, if I just want to blur out this specific piece, right? I can simply, as you told, we can choose some software and blur that segment whichever we want. But I think even the diopter which is used here, it has two different properties. I mean, I somehow feel it that this subject has a different, uh, you know, different look, and this subject has a different look. So yeah, and it's primarily used when there are tense situations. I saw another one actually, diopter shots. Jaws. Right. So I saw this part, right? So this is a diopter cut. So there's a movie called Jaws, wherein they did this. So this guy is a subject and she is a subject. Both of them are in focus, and this specific piece, right, that you're seeing. So this is out of focus, and these both have different properties. Now this person is very clear to us, and this person looks unclear. Of course, the distance is more, so you may think that this is unclear. But the thing is that this is not, I don't think this is autofocus. This is the normal manual focus. But if you want to give two different attributes of lens or properties of lens to two different subjects in a single frame, that's when you'll use a split diopter. And this blur is just a side effect of it. At the same time, it is very creative. I think we discussed a lot about this, but right. Any more doubts still here? I'll summarize everything. If not,
But I don't think we use this.
we'll
I
never
mean,
use it.
yeah, blurring
We won't
things,
use
right?
it.
Even that
Yeah,
the above one also, I believe we won't use until
yeah,
it's.
this also we won't use. We won't use split diopter. We won't use soft focus. We
Yeah.
may use rack focus when Trilocya or Fanigaru or when they both are with
But
swarming.
one question, Ramakant. Yeah, as you were saying, the rack focus also, I don't think we use, right? I believe. Why?
Mostly
Because
yes,
we.
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
That's true. Mostly we won't use rack focus also, and we
Maybe
may
deep
we
focus or
uh, shallow
shallow
focus.
focus. Yeah, these two
Correct.
things.
These both. These are again. I want to clarify that these are not types. These are just techniques. So it's just in your
Okay.
mind. It's nowhere in the camera. None of these are in the camera. Camera does not have any of these settings. It's just a technique which is used by you. It's a creative technique. None of these are natively options in any of the cameras. I hope that that point is clear. That was important. Actually. Now I'll
Okay.
just
Yes, yes,
summarize.
Ramak.
Yeah. Now I'll very quickly summarize. What's the shallow focus? It will isolate the subject. It gives us the cinematic look. And okay, this is good. How do I achieve it using my FX30 camera? Very simple. You increase your aperture. When I say increase your aperture, it has a wide aperture. That is, your opening is large. It has low f number. Okay. Now, of course, it gives you a very good depth of field, a shallow depth of field, and it focuses only on your speaker. This is shallow focus. And then deep focus. So this deep focus keeps the entire scene in focus. Again, it's very simple. Keep your depth of focus very narrow. Okay. That is, you use what is you keep your aperture very low. That is, the area of aperture or area of iris is low. Okay. So that way you can keep everything in focus. And then comes soft focus. How do you achieve soft? I mean, again, soft focus is used to give you the dreamy or nostalgic modes. Now, how do you do this? There are filters for this. Mist filters. Mist filters. Camera. So yeah, you have something like this. You have these mist filters, which will give you that specific effect, something like this, very accurate. So it gives you this dreamy vintage look. So that's where we use these diffusion filters. Mist or diffusion, we can use any of them. It doesn't matter. Both will give you the same effect. But if you don't have budget, there's a very simple technique. You can just take Vaseline, the 5 rupees Vaseline, and you can apply it to your UV filter or any filter, right? The basic protection that you have to your lens. You can take Vaseline and you can apply very thin layer of it, and you will definitely get this very close, dreamy look. So that's how you achieve the soft focus. And then you have rack focus. Rack focus is extremely widely used in cinematography, wherein you switch the focus or attention between two different subjects. How do you do it? There is only one way, which is to choose manual focus. So what's a manual focus? You decide which subject to focus specifically. If subject A is speaking, if Swami is speaking, click on Swami. Our camera is touchscreen, right? So you can click on your display. You can keep your camera fixed. You can touch on Swami and the camera will focus on Swami. If Taluk is asking question, then click on her in the display and the camera will focus on her. Okay. This is an example of rack focus. How you do it? There's only one way. Choose manual focus and manually switch the focus between your subjects. And then we have the useless split diopter focus, and it's to keep two sharp focal planes in one single shot. You can simply attach the diopter filter as I showed. DIOPT or diopter filters. So this is a sample diopter filter. You can use this. Advanced diopter filters have only a single piece. That is, if you look at this, okay, it's the same, right? Yeah. So yeah, this is a diopter filter. It looks like this. As we discussed, you can use this. We'll never use it. Okay. So that's it about the techniques or the creative techniques of focus. So are we clear with this? Okay. Now, before I ask questions, I'll tell you what we should use. That's very important for us. What technique we should use? We can choose shallow focus. And again, even though we use shallow focus, we will not get even a close view like this, because if you I'll go to the first one. So here, if you see, this is a cinema, right? So just look at the kind of background blur this image has. It likely has an F factor of 1.4 or even lesser, right? And if you look at this again, I'm 100% sure that even this shot has an f-stop of maybe 1.4 or even less. So that it gives this perfect bokeh effect. But our lens is an f4. So no matter how much, even if you keep your aperture at maximum, that is at f4, you will not get this perfect look. You will get good depth of field. I'm not denying that, but you will not get very perfect depth of field. And again, coming back to the question, like what should we use? In shallow focus, if you want to, we should always choose shallow focus technique only. You cannot, I mean, so it's like this. When you choose shallow focus, I should also make it clear that which kind of focus we are using. We'll use autofocus only, and we'll click on Swami so that only Swami is in focus. And even though Swami moves, we'll make sure that he is in focus. So that's one way of doing it. And the other way of doing it is you can put a deep focus. Actually, deep focus is also good for us. And last time when professionals came, they did it in deep focus only. Let me show that to you. We'll understand it very clearly. This is important to understand actually which kind of technique to use. Krishna, Stami, let's see. Come up. I'll open the channel. Now see, look at this. Right? This is what the professionals have shot. So their aperture is not 4. I think their aperture is 2.8 or 2. So here everything is in focus. Your mics are in focus, Swami is in focus, chair is in focus, blue backdrop is in focus, Krishna's frame is in focus, the Krishna's chair is also in focus, flowers are also in focus. So this is a wide focus area. So this is called as a wide focus area wherein everything is in focus. Okay. Now, did we use autofocus or did we choose manual focus? I'm sure they used AFC, autofocus continuous, or they might have used manual focus also, and they just kept everything in focus. I'm not sure regarding what they use, but since everything is in focus, we may assume that it just he just put everything in focus without a specific focus technique. But again, these have multiple components in it, right? So you have Krishna's frame, you have this chair, you have Swami's, mics, you have Swami. When these many objects are there in the frame, you cannot. There is no point of focusing only on the speaker, because if you are doing that, then what's the point of putting other objects in the frame? So this is a wide focus wherein no specific object is focused, but whatever content is there in the frame has been focused. So this is an example of deep focus. So what should we do in our studio environment? You can choose deep focus wherein Swami, the chair and the background, all of them will be in focus, or you can choose a shallow focus technique wherein Swami will be in focus, the chair and the background will be blurred a bit. So it won't be completely blurred out. It looks decent only. It looks decent. It won't look bad. But what would we,
I
what
have one
again?
doubt.
Uh, yeah, go ahead.
Like once we start shooting, can we shift from deep focus to shallow focus, or once
Excellent.
we start?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I'll cover it later. I wrote specifically about that. That's what I would be discussing next. What you told is
Oh,
completely possible. That we can choose. There are modes. You have DMF mode that will do exactly what you told. I'll discuss that immediately after this. What you told is possible.
sure.
I just want to show something what an F4 looks like. So this is see, excellent example. So here, if I forward it, Swatika is in focus, right? Then you ask me a question, why is no one in focus here? Because in FX30, so what mode did I choose here? I chose AFC, autofocus continuous. What that mode is in a few minutes. But again, coming back, what I'm trying to tell is that, so FX30 has this option. It tells you, okay, you asked me to choose autofocus continuous. So I will try to continuously focus one person. Okay. But I want to know what is that you want to shoot. Do you want to shoot a human being, or do you want to shoot an object, or do you want to shoot an animal or a bird? So these three are the options that would be given by FX30 or any other cine camera, matter of fact. So of course I chose autofocus and I kept human being as the option to it. Now Swatika came out, she is doing some settings in OBS. And if you look at this frame, your camera is continuously trying to focus, okay, because the mode says autofocus continuous, but what does it say is that it should try to find a human being. There's no human being, so it is continuously trying to shoot, but there is no human being. So for that reason it just keeps zoning out. There is no clear focus here. It's going to stay blurred like that because the subject has not been identified yet. In some time, when Swatika goes back, see, look at that, she went back. See, now she came to the frame. The moment she came to the frame, right, something is playing in the background. Let me cross this out. Right. So the moment she came into the frame, everything is in focus. Now I want to tell you that I did not touch the focus settings at all. I did not manually tune in the focus also. So it happened automatically. Okay, so this is how autofocus works. An excellent example of it. Now again, why I wanted to show this video is that this is how an F4 looks like. So we are already at the maximum possible aperture f4, but at the Swatika is in focus, but the background is very slightly blurred out. You won't see that very cinematic complete blur. So even at maximum aperture, our lens will support blurring to this minor extent only. Okay. So now coming back to the question, which should we use? Shallow focus or deep focus? In our use case, for our frame and our lens, both of them will give you exact same output. There will not be any difference between shallow focus and deep focus. I would say go ahead with shallow focus for the reason being you will get slightly cinematic look wherein there will be a very minor blur of background, which is good. So any questions on techniques of focus?
No, Ramakant.
Great. Now we'll cover. So this is all about techniques of focus. None of these are in any camera or in any lens. It is just your creative option. Now we'll talk about something that all the cameras have. That is types of focus. There are two types of focus, no matter which lens you take or which camera you take. One is autofocus, the other is manual focus. The names can explain themselves. Autofocus, you let the camera decide. You let the camera find the focus for you. This is very good option actually, because Sony cameras are exceptionally known for their autofocus techniques. Sorry, autofocus capability. Our camera is very good with autofocus. And then you have manual focus, wherein we have the ring, right, on a lens. Focus ring on lens. So you have usually, I mean, all the lenses do not have these these three rings. They have one or two rings, or they have only one ring, or they have three rings. It depends. So here, you have multiple focus rings also. But let me go back. So this part of a lens, this ring is a zoom ring. It tells you 24, 35, 50, 70, right? So this is the focal length. If you change the focal length, it will zoom in or zoom out. Okay. And here this says focal length, right? 24 to 70, that's what is here. 24 will have till 70. And this ring 2 is focus ring. It will, how to explain focus ring is, if you rotate this ring, it will try to focus in and it will try to focus out of the subject. So you can choose that specific focus which you think is accurate for the frame as per your your need. So even our camera has even our lens has a focus ring, but we never used it because we always we shoot in autofocus. We are not good enough to do manual focus, because if you, when you're trying to zoom in or zoom out, if you hit the focus ring by mistake also, everything will be focused out, which is very risky. So until and unless you are a pro, you should not use manual focus. On top of that, there is no need of using manual focus. Okay, so that is a simple definition of what's an autofocus and what's a manual focus. Okay. Usually manual focus is used for extremely great precision, like you're doing some wildlife photography or you're choosing macro, doing macro photography, etc. Okay, so these both are types of focus. And then you have focus modes. Okay, you have few modes in autofocus, you have few modes in manual focus. So in autofocus type of focus, you have three main modes of focus. The first one is AFS or autofocus single, which is also called as single shot autofocus. So Nikon and Sony cameras have this naming, and Canon cameras call it as one shoot autofocus. And okay, now what this mode does, right? So it's a set it and forget mode, which means your speaker is sitting or standing or whatever. Your speaker will not, your sorry, not speaker, your subject will not move. Subject is stationary. At that time, you can lock in your subject in the camera and you can do the recording. No matter who comes in between the frame or what happens, whatever may happen, the focus will not change from that specific subject. Now, how do we set that in our camera? So if you look right, the the uh, the capture button that we have in FX30, it has two levels. If you click it one level, it will try to focus. If you click it down, deep down, in the second level, it will take the image for you or the photo for you. So of course, we will not use that button. We have a specific record button that we use in FX30. So we'll use that button, but using this button, you can select your focus. Of course, even if no matter how much I tell you, you will not understand this perfectly, because to understand focus, you have to try it out by yourself in the camera, but I try to keep it as simple as possible. So you just lock in your focus on the subject and you leave it. Okay. And your camera will focus only on that subject. Okay, and in FX30, if you lock on as a subject, right, it will give you beep sound, which means that the focus has been confirmed on the subject, and it's like telling this assistant, focus on this person and do not change it. Okay? It's not person, it's a subject. Okay. So okay, that's about autofocus, and then you autofocus single mode, single shot. And then you have AFC, autofocus continuous, and or Canon cameras called as AA servo autofocus. Now again, you press the shutter in half. The way of setting it is the same, but you say your camera to not lock the subject. Okay, uh, this is an excellent focus technique. So how this works is that it will continuously try to focus on the subject which you try to lock, okay, which you try to select. And you should understand this clearly. Here, in first mode, you are locking a subject. You select a subject, you lock the subject, and you tell it to shoot only this particular subject. Okay. Now, in autofocus continuous, you will still select the subject that you want, but you will not lock it, because if you lock it, there is no point of trying to focus continuously. You should just focus like that. It is single shot. So here you will tell the camera what is your subject. Even if it makes some minor movements, it will still try to keep that entire subject in focus. Okay, so that is autofocus continuous. It will continuously try to keep the subject that you selected in focus. And I'll tell you one key distinction between these both at the end. Uh, Now next comes AFA, automatic autofocus, or also called as AA focus autofocus. This is a hybrid mode. Let's say you're a beginner, you cannot decide if you should use a single shot autofocus or if you should choose a continuous autofocus. Then you can go ahead and choose automatic autofocus. Now autofocus itself is an excellent option that the camera controls how to focus on a subject. And if you cannot even decide between if it should be a single shot or it should be a continuous shot, you can see automatic shot, automatic autofocus, and it's a hybrid mode. Initially, it will start on the single autofocus. It will try to detect the subject on its own. And once it detects the subjects on its own, if your subject moves, then it will automatically switch to continuous autofocus. Sometimes this is called as an overkill, because initially, if your lens or if the camera is not lens, if your camera is unable to properly identify what your primary subject should be, it will try to shoot the wrong subject, and it will do all these different types of automatic focusing on the wrong subject. Of course, you will identify it immediately and you will stop the recording. But sometimes this is considered as an overkill. But if you are beginner, you don't know which should use. If you are confused, you can confidently choose this. So this is all about autofocus. And then we'll talk about manual focus. We have two simple methods in manual focus. First, I'll talk about manual focus only. So what's a manual focus? The camera's autofocus system itself is brought down. It doesn't shoot anything. It doesn't focus on anything. You have to manually dial in the focus ring. You should manually select your subject. You should decide what should be the proper amount of focus that you want to give to your subject. And you can, turn the focusing till you find that, okay, this should be the proper focus for my subject. Okay. You turn the focus ring on your lens until the subject looks sharp in your viewfinder or on your screen. I'll tell you what a viewfinder is. It may be important to know. Viewfinder in Sony camera. So this is called as a viewfinder. So Sony released their FX2 camera recently. So FX2 camera has this one. Here, instead of looking at this screen, you can put your eye and you can look into this viewfinder. So somewhat like this, right? And of course, this viewfinder that Sony FX2 has, it is tiltable. You can either make it look like this, on same level like your display, or you can move it up and you can look something like this. So you can put it to your eye and you can look at the scene directly, natively, without looking at the screen. So this is called as a viewfinder. So why I'm telling this is because So you can when you're trying to choose when you try to do manual focus, then it's better if you have a viewfinder so that you know the exact focus to be set up for a given subject. And sometimes I feel that this is not so useful, this viewfinder. And many people gave wrong comments about this viewfinder that's released in FX2, saying that it's an overkill because this is not much used in regular shoots, and the quality also is not that great. So DMF, the last mode in manual focus. So this is best of both worlds. You half press the shutter again. That is, it will let you do the camera autofocus first, and then without letting go of the button, you can manually turn in the focus ring to make tiny precise adjustments. So I'll tell you what this is, and I'll also tell you how is this different from this autofocus continuous. I'll just tell what AFC is again. AFC, not AFC, AFA. So it will start in AFA. It will start to identify your subject, and then it will try to continuously shoot it. In DMF, what happens is that so here in autofocus, you will select the subject, okay, by pressing the shoot button once, okay, and then it's locked, okay, and the camera takes care of everything else. In DMF, what happens is that you select the subject with your button once, okay, same like autofocus, you identify your subject, and you do not release your finger. You keep your finger like that only, and while holding your finger, you will change the focus ring so that you achieve whatever focus you want, and then you release your the shutter button, okay, and when you release it, it will understand, okay, I did choose autofocus, but this fellow intervened in the middle and he made few more changes to the focus manually, and now I will shoot in this hybrid way of initial autofocus and then tuned in manual focus. So that is DMF. Now I'll quickly summarize very quickly. So AFS, a single shoot autofocus, if you want to choose landscapes, portraits, or still objects which do not move. If you want to shoot a rock, a very big rock, if you want to shoot, or a tree, if you want to shoot, you choose AFS. Your subject is not moving, so locking is safe. And AFC, at the end, I will tell you which focus mode we should use. So for AFC continuous, you can choose moving objects or moving people, or you can also choose it in sports like swimming, etc., wildlife, whatever. Your subject is moving and your camera needs to track it. That's when you use AFC. AFA is for beginners. You don't know what to do. You can just go ahead and confidently choose AFA. Your camera, the only downside is your camera will decide what the subject is, not you. You do not have any control in AFA with respect to focus. And then coming to manual focus, complete manual focus. It's also called as CMF sometimes, complete manual focus or manual focus. Low light macro creative shots. Let's say in wildlife photography, your animal, right? Let's say a lion or tiger or a bird, it will be very far from you. And you have very specific lenses designed for that. At that time, your only choice is to choose manual focus because it's up to you. You decide the extent of creativity of focus. At that time, you choose manual photography, manual focus. And then you have DMF. And DMF is more like assistant. It's like assisted manual focus. So you just select your, you let autofocus do the job, and you let it determine what should be the focus. And once you select that, without releasing your finger, you do manual changes to the focus. Okay. If you want very critical portraits, right? Usually for portraits, you can use this, no doubt in that. But even in portraits, let's say you want to make few things out of focus. Okay. If you want to do that, then choose DMF. Okay. Now I'll tell you which mode we should use. Okay, I'll let someone else answer the question. Which mode do you think we should be using? Banu, Trailokyana, Swatika. Any guess which will work the best for us?
Autofocus continuous.
Okay, that's one choice. Is that the only answer, or do you have any other answers?
The first one, where the subject isn't moving.
One doubt I'm having is that, like, if we choose that still mode, that is the first one, and Swami suddenly raises his hand. Now, will it capture properly, or if I like for hand movements of the subject, should I click on continuous? Continuous one is better, or still focus one is better?
Yeah, I'm coming to that point. That's a good question again. So what will happen is that, let's say Swami moves forward and he goes backward, right? The moment he does that, everything will go out of focus in AFS mode, which is very dangerous. So let's say Swami leaned forward. Your camera will think that, okay, subject has moved. The command that I got is the subject is locked. The subject, if subject moves out of the lock, it thinks that it's not my subject at all. So it will blur out everything, which is very dangerous. So that's why we should not use AFS. AFC is correct answer, because in AFC, you define your subject, you do not lock your subject. So for Swami, in our use case, what we do is that when Swami moves forward and backward, it tracks Swami. It does not lock Swami. So let's say he moves hands very much. We know how Swami moves his hands. So it does not put anything out of focus. It understands that Swami's hand is part of the subject only. Okay, and it does not put anything out of focus. So for our use case, wherein Swami can lean forward or he can lean backward or he can move his hands, you should choose AFC, continuous shots. Autofocus continuous. That's what we should be using. Any questions still here?
No.
Okay, great. Now we are done with the concept of focus. I hope we are clear. Now next we'll discuss about video shooting modes. I want to complete all the topics actually, because we are going, I feel we are going slow. There are many more topics to cover. I want to complete everything. So please bear with me.
One small conclusion about this manual and DMF, MF and DMF, like a little bit confusion.
Okay, I'll tell you exactly. When do we use manual focus? I'll show you exactly so that you will understand it. Wildlife photography. Look at this. Do you think that our lenses, any lens usually, I'm talking about normal lenses, have the ability to shoot something of this perfect, bokeh effect? It's really hard. There are lenses, I'm not denying that, but you are keeping this bird in focus. You're keeping this branch also in focus. Of course, it's in focus only till here. This part is again out of focus. And this is slightly out of focus, right? Now, when you want to shoot something this creative, you want to control everything on your own. You cannot leave anything on the camera. So this is an example of manual focus. So this person, 99.9%, he must have used a manual focus, wherein he decided every single, actually he must have shot in manual mode only. He must have decided the aperture, ISO, everything. And then he must have tuned the focus ring, and he must have shot the perfect focus that he wants. Okay. Autofocus again is just a feature which is given by cameras to make the focus easy. Actually, in olden days, what used to happen is that when this autofocus was not there, when a person is trying to shoot the video, there is a second person who will try to adjust the focus ring for this person to keep the focus intact. So that is how so that's the difficulty of keeping a constant focus. When autofocus came, everything is automated and it replaced the focus person. But the point I'm trying to tell is that you choose manual focus when you know exactly what you want to very precision, very perfectly. You want this itself, and you want everything to be under your control. That's when you choose manual mode. Now this DMF, right? Where is that? What is it? Direct manual focus. So I'll tell you what's the key difference between these both. Actually, both are same. There's only one difference. In manual focus, what will happen is when focus ring is under your control. Right? I mean, first thing is that we should acknowledge that autofocus is really good. Okay, and everyone acknowledges that. For that reason only, since autofocus is good, direct manual focus has been introduced. Now, what happens in direct manual focus is that it lets you do camera take care of focus? It will give you the best autofocus possible. After you get the best autofocus, then you tune in and then you select the manual focus of your choice. Okay. In manual focus, that autofocus is also not there. You should do everything from scratch. You should identify your subject, you should tune in the subject, you should select the subject, you should, tune the focus to get the perfect focus that you want. The initial work is also done by you. In DMF, the initial work of identifying the subject properly is done by the camera, which is very good, which is quite good. After camera doing the autofocus, then you tune in. So people whoever are doing manual focus, they usually do direct manual focus also. They select the subject using autofocus and then they control the focus ring up to their will. Or if they are completely, they are very professional, they will not use DMF also. They will choose manual focus because they know everything about it. So did I clear your doubt,
Yeah, got
Banu?
yes, yes.
Okay. So any more doubts on focus before we move on to video shooting modes? Okay, nothing. So I assume there are no doubts. So the bottom line is in focus, which focus mode, autofocus mode we should use. Okay, which type? We definitely don't want manual focus because there is no way, even if you touch the ring, it will focus out. So we should choose autofocus only. In autofocus, we should choose AFC. And coming to the technique to use, we can choose, where is this, a deep focus. Or you can choose shallow focus also. For our lens, both will be nearly same. There won't be any difference. Now we'll come to the a very important concept, a video shooting modes in FX30. These are generic modes also. In every other camera, you'll have all these modes. Okay. The very first video shooting mode. What's a video shooting mode? It's a mode in which you will record your video. The very first mode is intelligent auto. Intelligent auto is a mode that you have in FX30. Camera will decide everything for you. Okay. It will decide aperture. It will decide ISO. It will decide shutter speed. It will decide white balance. It will decide everything, whatnot. You just hit the record button and you forget. So that is intelligent auto. That's okay. And then the next mode is program auto, P. So your camera will decide shutter speed and aperture. You control other settings other than shutter speed and aperture. And then next we have aperture priority. As the name says, your priority is aperture. What is the advantage of aperture control? It's clearly depth of field. So you want to prioritize the depth of field. So you choose aperture priority when you prioritize your depth of field. So you will control the depth of field, that is aperture, and every other setting will be taken care by camera. And then you have shutter priority mode. As the name says, your priority is shutter. So when do we choose shutter priority? What is the advantage of controlling the shutter speed? It is motion blur or freezing the motion. What are use cases of this? Let's say the classic fan example, right? If your fan is continuously rotating, if you keep your shutter speed very high, your shutter will try to capture in that very brief amount of time, maybe 0.0001 second. So your continuously rotating fan will look almost as if it is constant. Okay. So that's one use case. And what is the actual use case in real world is something could be like F1 racing car, right? If some race is happening, right? Even though car moves at 200, 300 or 400 kilometers per hour, they'll get perfect still shots. So that's when that's exactly when your shutter priority mode is used. Okay, and then you have manual exposure. You control both shutter and aperture perfectly. I mean, it's under your control. Okay, ISO won't be under your control. So why is this, right? The name says manual exposure. So shutter and aperture control the light that is potentially entering into your camera. ISO is digital light produced by the camera itself. So that's not ideally lighting. So when you say manual exposure, you want to have full control of exposure that's present in the scene. So you control both shutter and aperture, everything else is controlled by camera. And then you have flexible exposure mode or flexible EXP. It's a hybrid mode. You can switch the settings. Let's say you say that, okay, my priority is shutter for some time. And after some time, you say that, no, my priority is aperture. Okay. And then you say that the environment has become very complex, and it's hard for me to control the exposure continuously. Okay, for example, let's say you're shooting under the tunnel for some time, and immediately you came out of the tunnel. So there's a drastic change of exposure or lighting in the scene. It's really hard to control exposure in such cases. Then you will tell that no, it's not up to me. Let the camera control the exposure. I'll just control the ISO, which is slightly tweaking the lighting so that the output comes out as expected. So that is flexible shutter mode. And then you have what is this? Program auto, right? So I just wrote this point bottom. I'll take this up later. So as I told, so in program auto, you just set the camera controls shutter and aperture, and you can control the other settings. That being told, there is one important concept to understand in program auto. It is true that your camera will set. So 1/60th, this is the shutter speed. Your shutter will hit once in every 1/60th of the second, and the aperture is f4.0. So your camera has decided that this is the ideal value of shutter and aperture for the ideal exposure in my frame. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, you think that, okay, the exposure is fine, but what about the side effects? Now, the shutter speed, as we know, controls the motion blur, and the aperture, as we know, controls the depth of field. Now, you want the same exposure that is set by the camera by its choice of shutter speed and aperture, but you feel that the depth of field is not good enough for you. So, you can dial, there's a dial in the camera. So, it will try to switch the combination of shutter speed and aperture to some amount so that the exposure remains the same, but you'll be able to control either of the shutter speed or the depth of field, because you cannot control both. If you control both, there is nothing the camera is doing. You are doing everything. So let's say that the exposure value here is plus 0.3. Okay, let's assume plus 0.3 is the exposure value here. Now, when you turn the dial in program auto or program shift, what happens is that the brightness will be same. The exposure will remain the same. It will again remain at 0.3 only. Now, what's going to happen is, if you notice, your focus, not focus, your motion blur has changed. It has become 1/125, and your aperture has also changed. It's f/28. Now, what's going to happen is your aperture has increased. F-stop number has decreased, so aperture has increased, which means that you will get your desired depth of field. You will get your bokeh effect. But what's the side effect of this? Since you increase the aperture, brightness is going to increase. But I want to maintain the same brightness. That's the reason I chose this program auto mode. So to complement that, it's going to adjust the shutter speed, and it will make it 1/25 so that the scene becomes relatively darker. And due to this increased aperture, it will become relatively brighter. So these both cancel each other. Okay. Then again, you say that no, my focus is on shutter now. I want to make sure that my motion blur is I want to decrease the motion blur. So if I have it at 1/25, I'll get very specific shots, but I don't want that. It's looking very robotic. So I will increase the shutter speed. I made it 1/30. If I do this, the side effect is that the exposure will increase. So in order to balance that, it will automatically decrease your aperture from f.28. It decreases to f/5.6, so that the depth of field would get affected, but you will definitely get the motion blur that you expect. And of course, why do we do this? Sometimes you just want to keep it at 1/48, let's say, because that's what the 180-degree shutter rule tells us. So this is how the program auto mode works. Okay, I hope this point is clear. Now, I just wrote a few points, the rule of thumb. When do we use aperture priority? When do we use shutter priority? And when do we use this manual exposure mode? Aperture priority is aperture is priority, so you want depth of field, right? Depth of field control, you choose that. Shutter priority when you want motion control. M or manual, this is always used by cinematographers and photographers. They do not let the camera decide anything for them. They know everything about the cameras and lenses. So they decide what should be the values of everything. So if you want predictable results, choose manual exposure. That is, you chose the values of exposure triangle by yourself, and then you choose manual white balance. You choose 18% of the gray card and exposure environment, or you're tuning the temperature of the light, studio lights used by you. That is how you set the white balance. And then choose appropriate focus mode, AFC for our case. Then you'll get very good output. Okay, I made this sample cheat sheet. In iAUTO mode, you control nothing. Everything is controlled by camera. This is like quick casual shooting. So Sharma Garu has this camcorder, right? Just open the lid of it and do recording. No additional work. No need to use our brain much. Just click on button. It will take care of everything for you. That is iAUTO mode. Okay, some family clips, shootings, casual shoots, etc. Then you have program auto mode. You will control ISO, you'll control white balance, you'll control focus, you'll also control exposure compensation. I'm sure you remember what exposure compensation is. If not, once go back and give it a read. So all these things you will control in program auto. Then what does camera control? It controls two important things, both shutter and aperture. If you think that this brighting is not enough, you just shoot up your ISO in worst possible case. And if you think that I like the balance of exposure, but I want to change the motion blur or depth of field, you can manually dial in and you can still control these both. That being told, it does not let you control the exposure that is formulated by the camera. That's the key distinction here. So when do we use this? You want to do very quick setup, just a general shooting. You want to choose a street vlog. So then you choose program auto mode. And then comes aperture priority. As we know, aperture priority, you'll control the aperture. Of course, the other things, the ISO, white balance, focus, we control all these things. Camera controls only shutter speed. Okay. And when do you use it? You want to maintain that clear depth of field. Again, portraits or interviews. This is very widely used mode actually. If you do not have a cine grade camera, which does not give you a specific mode for shooting movies, then the go-to mode is aperture priority because it gives you that natural bokeh effect and it looks cinematic. For that reason, this is the most used mode for interviews or portraits. And then shutter priority, what do I control or what do we control? Shutter, ISO, white balance, focus. These are controlled by us. Only aperture is controlled by the camera. When should we use it? In sports or action scenes, etc. Then manual focus. You control your shutter speed, exposure, ISO. The exposure triangle is controlled by us on top of white balance and focus. So what does the camera control? It doesn't control anything. Everything is under your control. If you're a professional, you're doing pro grade work, or if you're shooting some short films, etc., choose manual mode. And then you have flexible exposure. It lets you switch between auto mode and manual mode. Let's say that for some time you thought I'll choose manual mode. You recorded in manual mode. And then you said, okay, I don't want manual mode anymore. In between the scene, it lets you switch between manual focus and manual shooting mode and one of the priority modes like shutter or aperture or shutter priority or aperture priority. Events or few live shoots, it's used. Depends on the context. If some person has, one person is sitting for some time, you are putting him in focus and you are shooting him, and that person all of a sudden raises and he keeps roaming on the stage, then you want to switch it up, right? So that's a use case. And then most important one, the movie mode. We are going to use this mode only all the time. So movie mode is specific to FX30. So this is designed by FX30 to shoot movies using the cinematic settings that are given by the camera. So what do we control? Of course, we control the aperture, we control the ISO and focus and color profile. Color profile is very advanced concept. Color profiles, picture profile or color profile. So I'll cover these in at the end because it takes time to understand all these things. But simply put, you can consider color profile as a setting which is present in the camera, which will try to give maximum flexibility to you to decide the color grading of your scene. Okay, so S-log3, it's a logarithmic color profile. It will, when you're trying to shoot it, it will give you the maximum dynamic range. So what happens when you do that is that it will give you flat looking scene. That is, it looks as if we did not shoot the video properly. Okay. Flat videos using log recording. Yeah, so it's how this is how it's going to look. Your raw will look something like this. Your raw will look like this. Log will look like this. Rec 709 is the video that you will get after you do the post production work. How do you convert? So log will look like this. It doesn't have any colors. It looks like very dull. It looks as if we did something terribly wrong. So let's look at this, right? So this is how it's going to look. This is the best actually. See, ungraded log footage, it looked like this. Kubelet applied. So dot cube is a type of lookup table. Again, what's a lookup table? I'll tell you later. But consider this as something that you should do in post-production in case you do a logarithmic recording. This gives you the maximum dynamic range so that you can fine-tune the color grading of your footage. So sometimes even in the normal movie shooting, you will not get that dynamic color grades that you want. It's not possible sometimes. So at that time, they choose in log, they do post-production. There is something called as gamma curve. So they alter the gamma curve and they get the colors of their choice. Should we use it? I don't think so. We need not use it. Why and all will cover in next sessions. So this is under our control. This doesn't mean that we should use it. We will turn it off. Last time when I shot Swatika, right? So I enabled one of the filters called PP11. Where is that? It's called as SS Anytone. It's very modern and it gives you very good skin tone. This minimal grading is needed, but grading is needed. You are seeing an ungraded video. For that reason, you will think that the exposure is low or something is wrong. But to me, at least, I felt that this is natural. But we can definitely increase the exposure somewhat. So this is not even the actual output. The output will come after we do the post-production grading, wherein we apply the LUTs, lookup tables. It will become advanced if we discuss for now. So what should we do, right? Why am I telling all you these things? You can simply turn off, you can choose PP or OFF. You will turn the picture profile off. Not sure if I wrote it here, but you can turn this specific feature off so that none of those will be selected and you'll have everything under your control. Now, what is not under your control is the shutter angle, but not the shutter speed. Okay, so you can tell the camera to just say 180-degree rule. Okay, it'll follow 180-degree rule. Okay, so by default it will follow 180-degree rule. Why does it follow it? Because all the production grade videos are always have 180-degree shutter. For that reason, it will keep adjusting your shutter angle as per the 180-degree shutter rule. And okay, but I told you that the FPS is at 24. We are not going to change that. Then why is that this will change? Actually, it will not change. Even though if you shoot in the manual mode, if you put your FPS at 24, automatically you will put your shutter speed at 1/48 or 1/50, right? So instead of you manually tuning that, this movie mode allows you to select the degree. It lets you can select 180-degree option and it will calculate as per your FPS and it will take care of it. Let's say that mid frame you change the FPS. If you do not use movie mode, it becomes hard for you because you should go back, you should calculate what is your shutter speed 1/2 times your FPS. Should dynamically calculate it and then you should fix it. It will take a lot of time, right? So the camera will take care of shutter angle for you. And mix controls in changing lighting. Anytime you're recording video, this is the default mode that's used by that's used by anyone, especially if you purchase a cine-grade camera. So when do we use it? We can choose it for our feature studio shoots. Short films, documentaries also are shot on movie mode because it gives you, it makes it, it gives all the features. It lets everything to be under your control. It's just that it gives you the color profile or picture profile, which will make your video look more professional in post production. Okay, so okay, now the bottom line is which mode should we use? We should choose movie mode. Let's say that you think movie mode is not good. I want to choose a different mode. What should I do? We can go ahead and choose aperture priority mode. This is also good. But the first priority is movie mode. If you think it's bad, you don't know what went wrong in the camera, you can choose aperture priority, tune in aperture ISO, white balance and focus, and we are good. If you actually analyze it, you will see that you notice that the movie mode and aperture priority are very similar, because aperture priority controls the shutter speed, and here movie mode controls shutter speed by keeping 180 degrees, by following 180 degree shutter rule. Now, what's the difference between the control of camera with respect to these both modes is that movie mode does not consider exposure compensation when trying to control the shutter speed. That is, here in aperture priority, in order to make sure that your frame has proper exposure, it will change the shutter speed as much as it like without following the shutter rule of 180 degrees. So it may affect the motion blur. But your movie mode will not account for exposure. It will think that this fellow has aperture and ISO in his hand, so he will take care of the exposure for me. But my focus is to make sure that proper, motion blur is captured, because movies there's a lot of motion, right? That's why we call movies as motion pictures, right? So motion is my priority. So I will definitely follow 180-degree rule of shutter. That is, my shutter angle will be at 180 degrees, and I'll get the proper motion for him, and he will control the exposure. I have nothing to do with the exposure. So that is what movie mode does, and we will shoot in movie mode only. That's all about video shooting modes. So you may understand the theory properly now, but until and unless you shoot everything, you will not understand how any of these things work. So any doubts still here? Hello, good morning, good night.
Hello.
Yeah.
One small thing is that ఈ షట్టర్ స్పీడ్ ఉంది కదా 180 degrees or angle
అవునవును.
అసలు ఇంకా చేంజ్ చేయమా మనం ఎప్పుడు ఇంకా
Change చేయము. Actually, there are few other rules other than shutter 180 degrees. There are 200 degrees, etc. But they have different use cases, which is not standard videography. ఈ షటర్ యాంగిల్స్ లో ఇప్పుడు 180 degrees చూడు, 24 FPS పెట్టుకున్నప్పుడు 180 degree షటర్ యాంగిల్ పెడితే మనకి 1/48 వస్తుంది. కొన్ని కెమెరాస్ 1/48 సపోర్ట్ చేయవు కాబట్టి యూ కెన్ కన్సిడర్ దట్ యాజ్ 1/50. సో మనం ఇది చూస్తున్నాం, మన బేస్ ఇది. దిస్ విల్ గివ్ యూ మోస్ట్ న్యాచురల్ లుకింగ్ వీడియో. అవర్ మైండ్ విల్ పర్సీవ్ దిస్ యాజ్ సంథింగ్ వెరీ న్యాచురల్. ఈ 270 ఇంకా 45 degree యాంగిల్స్ వాడితే ఏమవుతుందంటే ఇట్ విల్ మేక్ there is something written here. I saw an image. There, for example, you want to get a dreamy look. Okay. If you let's take example of this. Someone hit a person with a big hammer. Okay, and his head is feeling dizzy. Okay, then your 45 degrees. This is not an ideal one. I'll show you shutter angles, and I read about this, but I felt that we should always choose 180 only. Other use cases don't come under our preview. ఏంటంటే కొన్నిసార్లు మరీ ఎక్కువ బ్లర్రీ అయిపోతుంది. ఇప్పుడు ఎవరికైనా హెడ్-ఏక్ వచ్చింది అనుకో, తల తిరుగుతుంది అంటాడే. సో అట్లా అయినప్పుడు ఈ షట్టర్ యాంగిల్ ని మార్చుకుంటే అప్పుడు ఏమవుతుందంటే అది ఎక్కువ బ్లర్ అయిపోతుంది అనమాట, నీకు ఆ షేడీ లుక్ వస్తుంది. సో అటువంటప్పుడు ఎందుకు వాడాలి ఇది మాత్రం అంటే, ఇప్పుడు యాక్చువల్ గా సినిమాలు తీసే వాళ్ళు ఏం చేస్తారంటే వాళ్ళు ఒక్కొక్క సీన్ ని ఒక్కొక్క బిట్ల కింద రికార్డ్ చేస్తారు కదా. ఒక హెడ్ మీద ఒకటి కొట్టాడు, అదొక సీన్ ఉంటది. వీటి హెడ్ మీద కొట్టిన తర్వాత వీడు తల తిరుగుతుంటది, 2-3 అడుగుల కింద పడిపోతాడు. ఇది మాత్రమే వీళ్ళు డెడికేటెడ్ గా షూట్ చేస్తారు కదా. సో ఇటువంటప్పుడు సీన్ మధ్యలో వాళ్ళకి తెలుసు వాళ్ళ యూస్ కేసు ఏంటి అంటే, వీడికి కళ్ళు తిరుగుతున్నట్టు కనిపిస్తుంది సీన్ అంతా. వాళ్ళు ఇంకా ఎక్కువ పెడతారు యాంగిల్. అప్పుడు లెట్స్ సే ఇన్స్టెడ్ ఆఫ్ 180 దే will choose something like maybe 300 degrees or 360 degrees completely. మొత్తం తిరుగుతున్నట్టే కనిపిస్తుంది. Throughout the scene, it will look like that only for him. సో అటువంటి కేసెస్ తో వేరే యాంగిల్స్ వాడతారు. ఇట్స్ అన్ అడ్వాన్స్డ్ మోడ్ టు గెట్ సంథింగ్ వెరీ స్పెసిఫిక్ దట్ యూ వాంట్ ఇన్ వీడియోగ్రఫీ ఆర్ సినిమాటోగ్రఫీ. వీడియోగ్రఫీ కూడా సినిమాటోగ్రఫీ యాక్చువల్లీ సేమ్ అప్పుడే వాడతారు వేరే యాంగిల్స్. సో మోషన్ బ్లర్నెస్ పెరుగుతుంది అనమాట. అప్పుడు వాళ్ళు వేరే డిగ్రీస్ వాడతారు. బట్ మనకి 180 is good.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Hey, who is there? Only we both are. Where is Trilokya? Trilokya left. Abhiramanna left.
There. I'm here.
Okay. Trilokya is here. Thank you, Trilokya, for staying.
No, Ramakant. Actually, thank you for explaining so elaborately.
Yes.
And my question was, once we start shooting, right? So,
Hmm.
should we ideally go for that mode, continuous, or should we go for movie mode? Which one is ideal for our case?
Which continues?
The previous
AF
table,
continuous.
AF continuous.
A continuous. No, we should choose both. In movie mode, movie mode has nothing to do with focus. So if you see, in movie,
Mm.
She's
movie,
talking about AFS and AFC.
I understood her point. What I'm trying to tell is, in movie mode, when you select movie mode, focus is under your control. So you, in movie mode also, you will decide if you should use autofocus or manual focus. You should select
Okay.
movie mode, and in movie mode, you should select AFC. You should
Okay.
select both together, because focus is under your control in movie mode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ramakant,
Okay.
just 5 more minutes. Can you again revise us about that exposure part, exposure and white balance in brief?
Okay. Exposure. Okay. You want me to tell exposure triangle?
No, not exposure triangle. I'm good with the shutter speed, ISO, and aperture, these things.
Hmm.
So, is there anything other than these three things called exposure?
Yes, there are many things. In yesterday's session, we covered about exposure compensation. So in few modes, in few video recording modes, sometimes you will see
Oh.
that I don't know which parameter to change, but it doesn't matter to me. I just want to increase the brightness. At that time, you have a bar in your camera called exposure compensation. If you dial that in, it will increase the exposure. If you dial that out, it will make the scene darker. So what changes in what mode is again technical. In aperture priority, it changes the shutter speed in order to facilitate the kind of exposure that you dial in. In shutter, it changes aperture. In program, it changes combination of shutter and aperture. So this is
Okay,
one of,
okay.
right. And yeah, that's it. White balance is a concept of telling the camera what is a white color. Because if sun shade changes, it will consider the changed shade as white. But that you cannot let different shades change in between your video, right? So you fix a
Yes.
specific white color, and that specifically telling the camera what a white color shade is called as white balance. So you expose your light onto a gray card, 18% gray shade white balance exposure control card, and you specifically pick that up, and that is called, you can call that as an ideal white balance, or you will set the temperature in the studio lights, right? So you can select the white balance, and you can manually feed in the temperature that is present in the studio lights. Actually, our camera is able to automatically identify the temperature also, and it is doing that perfectly. So that's a good option for us to control white balance.
Now we'll put that 18% gray card before the camera, and then
Hmm.
we either change the light temperature or change the ISO and other things. So in the display, it has to appear white.
No, wrong. Actually, it is exactly opposite. The thing is, we do not say what is a white color. When the moment you use an 18% gray shade, you are telling that I don't know what a white color is. Okay. I don't want the
Mm.
camera to decide what a white color is, but
Mm.
it has been theoretically proven in cinematography that when a light falls on an 18% gray shade,
Mm.
that specific shade is white color. So you open your camera and you choose you whatever lighting you have, that's up to you. Choose lighting of your choice, it doesn't matter. And you make the speaker hold the gray card in his hand, and
Mm.
in the camera you select manually adjust white balance. It will give you a small ring. Okay, you can move it around in the display, and you can
Mm.
pick you should select the gray card in the middle, so that
Okay.
it will consider that as white focus. You do not tell what white color is. You do not
Okay,
let the
okay.
camera control white color. Both are not that case.
Okay. So here we will put that card and we will let the camera decide that as the white color.
That is correct. Actually, instead of gray color, you can put white color also because our card has both colors. It has 18% gray shade. It also has pure white. You can dial in that also, or you can actually choose the temperature of the studio lights. Your camera will detect that automatically when you choose manual mode, manual white balance. Anything is fine. Last time when I shot, I felt that the temperature gave more accurate whiteness is what I thought. Okay, any more doubts before we move on to next concept? It won't take much time. It will complete fast.
We'll do it tomorrow, Ramakant.
No, please, we complete it. But if
Okay.
you don't have time, we can close it. But it won't take more than 5-6 minutes for sure. No doubt in that.
Okay. No problem.
Yeah. Coming to lenses, I mean, I told you all these things actually in middle in other sessions. So what's the lens? Eye of your camera. Okay. And if you don't have lens, your camera body is useless. It cannot take photo. It cannot take video. It cannot do anything. Okay. Now lens has two main objectives. It focuses light. What that means is that light from external environment will be focused onto your camera sensor. Of course, that's valid, right? Because when you mount your lens onto your camera. Okay, wait. Maybe I'll stop it here because I'll cover FX30 body and lens together. I think that is better because I think you will forget this even if I tell now. So yeah, I'll stop it here. Stop recording.